What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is I am the one and only Silver the Hedgehog, and welcome to you guys the first ever video of a brand new year, which is 2021. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll present to you our next Let's Play in terms of the Kirby series of games. This time around, we're going back onto the Nintendo DS of all things by tackling through Kirby Superstar Ultra. Now, this appears to be a remake of the Super Nintendo game called Kirby Superstar, aka Kirby's Fun Pack, on the European version. And the remake did first came out, I believe it was in 2008, in Japan and America, but then a year later in 2009 for the United Kingdom. So, but either way though, now I'm really looking forward to able to actually just trying to able to do this Let's Play for you guys. Especially noticeable, it has been a while since we actually done a Kirby Let's Play, ever since in Kirby's Return to Dreamland, aka Kirby's Adventure Wii, for those if we lived in Europe or Australia. So as you can see on screen, much like in Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll, I'm going to be playing this on the actual DS emulator because, well, unfortunately though, this is the only Kirby game, along with, I would say Kirby Mass Attack of any sorts, that this is the game that does never get its re-release on the Wii U Virtual Console version, which I was like, well, that's a bit disappointing, because as far as I'm aware, Kirby Superstar Ultra is, to me though, one of the definitive way playing Kirby Superstar to begin with, because I'll explain more details about this, but if we dive right in. So either way though, and yeah, much like the forms of Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo, that you start things off with just one game, and that's what appears to be by the forms of Spring Breeze. Except this time around though, is the fact that we actually have able to actually access to those three bonus sub-games, which is only exclusive to the DS remake. Now, I'll show those off until later, because for now, let's head over to the first game in this particular Kirby Superstar Ultra, which is Spring Breeze. All of the food in Peaceful Dreamland has been stolen. This must be the work of King Dedede. This game is easy, fun, it's simple enough for new players to enjoy. So basically, as you can see, much like in Kirby Superstar on the Super Nintendo version, basically it tells you the actual description of how the game actually works, and also it tells us what difficulty star is being rated. Like for instance, it has 1 difficulty star, meaning about the fact that this is one of the easiest games of the bunch. And yeah, let's begin with the, of course, Spring Breeze. And for those of you who haven't seen our Let's Play of you know, Kirby Superstar ever since in 2018, that you do realize is the fact that with Spring Breeze is actually likely a remake of Kirby's Dream Land, the one that started it all for the pink puffball. So yeah, that seems very interesting enough as it is. So anyways, let's get to it with, of course, Spring Breeze. This is your first time playing. Well, I've played it before on the Super Nintendo version. And would you like to do the tutorials? Well, I've already experienced this before, so there's no any further details about this. So yeah, let's get to it. In stage 1, Green Greens, which is the most iconic stage in terms of the Kirby games industry. So, but either way though, originally I was able to do this on my first attempt for this recording session, but for whatever reason is that I think my keyboard controls has been messed up. But thankfully I did manage to change the settings and what have you, so even then things get a little bit, well, easy and simple for my liking. So either way though, yeah, this is Kirby Superstar Ultra. As I said this before, this is a remake of, you know, Kirby Superstar. Originally came out on the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom. And, you do realize there are some very significant changes than in forms of how it does it on the Super Nintendo compared to the DS version, is that the graphics do look really nice and polished this time around, as opposed to the ones on the Super Nintendo version. Well, nothing wrong with it though per se, for nostalgia reasons. However though, I do honestly prefer the actual current sprites from the likes of the Kirby DS games, or specifically, ever since in Nightmare and Dreamland for the Game Boy Advance, and then basically, well, you guys should know what I'm talking about. So either way though, Yeah, as I said before, is the fact that today's day is, of course, the 1st of January today, in this case, in 2021. You know how the fact that you guys should probably already know ever since in yesterday's video, that you know how the fact that recently Knuckles has recently finished up with his Let's Play of Knuckles Chaotix ever since in yesterday's video, and he just Maxi just managed able to do a lot of discussions all about his final thoughts of 2020 as a result. But let's not think about it right now, because I'm sure most people seem to already watch that already. So, but either way though, because we all move on to the new year, and let's not think about 2020 ever again. Because obviously we're on to the next year, as you expect. So anyways, for Spring Breeze, if you couldn't tell already, is that obviously we're going to be going through Stage 1, which is of course Green Greens, and all the way up to Mount Dedede, which is the final stage in Spring Breeze. And as I mentioned this before, it's more likely a remake of Kirby's Dream Land 1, ever since in the Game Boy. And because of that though, you might actually be familiar with some similarities from there. Such as, for instance, is the fact that certain bosses, like Whispy Woods is a thing, and also Lololo and Lalala makes its appearance as well. And also, Kracko also makes an appearance as well. And of course, the final boss in Spring Breeze, which is of course King Dedede. And if you're following through our Let's Play of Kirby Superstar ever since in 2018, as I established that before, that we've already explained specific details about the forms of how the actual game itself looks like, except with the actual graphical as being a lot more updated than the forms of how it does it on the Super Nintendo counterpart. And I will say though, it does look very, very impressive, even to this day. And also, because of how the fact this is the remake of the Super Nintendo title, this also includes some new content. Like, for instance, for example, as I mentioned this before already, that it does manage to include 2 sub-games, or 3 sub-games to be more specifically, they have managed able to include, as opposed to the ones in the original Super Nintendo version was not found. This is pretty obvious because this is on the Nintendo DS. This means, yes, forced touchscreen controls. So, but even then though, because I'll show those off until later on for the majority of the Let's Play itself. And, also to top it all off is the fact that, well, they also include some new games here and there as well, which we'll discuss more about that whenever we finish up with, well, let's just say in terms of the forms of, once we finished 6 main adventures, which, obviously, we're going to be going for the chronological order, just like the forms of normal Kirby Superstar Let's Play. So in this case, for the sake of this video, I'm going to be focusing on Spring Breeze, as well as Gourmet Race. So hopefully we should be able to actually show off those 2, even though originally I was going to be able to try to do 3 games in one video, which is of course Spring Breeze, Gourmet Race, and Dino Blade. But unfortunately though, I have to save that up until likely for a few videos later, so... But I digress, it's no use either way. But anyway, something's worth mentioning for this point as well, for this particular remake, is that, as I said this before, I kind of wish if this game were able to get re-released on the Wii U eShop version, because, well, as you can tell from the actual screen resolution capture device, as you can tell, obviously I'm playing this on the emulator, and while the frame rate might be a bit jinxed up at points, especially noticeable when it comes to likely screen transition or something like that, but I'm sure enough though you can see it just fine, so either way though we can able to expect this much. In fact, the very first thing I actually just realized is that I actually got this remake ever since in my I would say in my birthday, actually, ever since in 2009. So, I know it seems a little bit hard to get this game nowadays, because even then though, I'm pretty sure that, why is it every single Kirby games always seem to able to get an expensive price side? Which I was like, that's a bit weird at first. So, anyway, you're still able to actually get yourselves copy abilities ever since in the previous Kirby games, that's for sure. And, obviously, the amount of copy abilities in the game is pretty much exactly the same as the forms of the Super Nintendo version's counterpart, and that's all I can say about it in terms of Kirby Superstar Ultra actually plays out to be. Except the fact that you can able to actually play as on the go if you want to, which is nice. And Also, to top it off is the fact that they're able to have some new features here and there, such as I said this before, more sub-games, thanks to the forms of some touchscreen controls, and also some more modes, or more adventures, or anything else like that. And overall, it's just a really cool version of Kirby Superstar, at least in my opinion anyway. And also I've noticed is the fact that one thing I really give this game credit for, or this remake or something like that, is that I'm happy to say is that the controls have been slightly tweaked since the forms of the original Super Nintendo counterparts, because sometimes though, the problem I have with the Super Nintendo version sometimes is that trying to able to actually just to jump, and then usually most of the time I was able to inflate or anything like that. I'm not exactly 100% sure, just because it has been donkey's years since I actually last time I played this game. In fact, the last time I played this game was actually on my original DS cartridge, which the only point I've actually got into was actually the final few games, which we'll point things out whenever we get into it. So anyways, here we go, rather, onto the final stage in Spring Breeze is Mount Dedede. And of course, much like the original Super Nintendo version, there wasn't any boss rush. So instead, we can able to hop over to see King Dedede of all things. And also, just like in the Super Nintendo version, that if we go onto the far left, there's Mario, Peach, and Toad, and if we go onto the right, then we see Luigi, another Toad, and even Wario of all things. I'm not exactly sure if Wario makes his appearance in the Super Nintendo version, but it's very nice to see all of those Mario characters make their appearance in Spring Breeze mode. And another thing is worth noting for this point as well is that much like the Super Nintendo version, basically you would able to actually see some of these little cinematics. Except this time around though, rather than just utilize these sprites as in for those cutscenes, instead it was actually by the forms of, let's just say, a completely like CGI cutscenes this time around, which I will say, this is a really cool, massive upgrade compared to the forms of how it does it on the original Super Nintendo version. So, and of course, since we've completed Spring Breeze, and this means the credit sequence will go a lot faster, meaning about the fact that there's going to be more to it than that. So, yeah, because basically, this game plays out exactly like how it does it on the Super Nintendo version, except, well, it's on the Nintendo DS of all things, which, yeah, that's all I can honestly try to say about this for the most part, so. And of course, much like the Super Nintendo version, I will pre-guarantee to able to try to achieve 100% completion. And as far as I'm aware, well, some of them might actually be pretty easy at first, but then when we get onto the later games, specifically the arena or anything else like that, well, obviously it gets a bit tougher, which we'll point things out whenever we get into this kinds of stuff. So anyway, so we've managed to able to see Kirby's nice little victory animation and stuff like that. Do apologize if there are some sound doesn't usually sync up with the actual cinematic cutscenes, because again, I'm obviously trying to blame on the emulator, which it's nothing to do with the actual sprites or something like that, which thankfully it does manage to make it a bit smoother. But as far as the forms of some cutscenes, as far as I'm concerned, sometimes it always lags a bit, so. And now we're done with Spring Breeze, as I said before, we can now able to actually access to Gourmet Race, as well as Dino Blade, and a Great Cave Offensive. So, I wasn't able to actually do this though, but let's focusing on Gourmet Race. So, either way though, let's go ahead and dive right in here. King Dedede challenged Kirby to see who is the hungriest gourmet, and who will reach the goal first. Speed up to eat, and eat to win. So you can obviously just manage to able to play with your friend as well if you like to, which even then though you can able to actually do it as in download play, which is nice. And yeah, let's get this thing to it in the second game in Kirby Superstar Ultra, which is of course Gourmet Race. So, and I'm pretty sure you always have to go through Grand Prix mode, so even then though, time attack is nothing right to home about, because usually for time attack you just go through like 3 amount of courses, and then you can simply just practice them at any point, whatever you want it will be. And also I've noticed that the actual cinematics does remind me of that particular specific cutscenes from the likes of, is this for the first time playing? Nope, I've already played before. So, anyway, some of these cutscenes in this particular remake does remind me of some of those cutscenes from Kirby's Return to Dreamland, which that was before that was the case. So, but even then, I very appreciate about that stuff. But, in Journey Forms of 2010, that we've obviously got Kirby's Epic Yarn, which is a much more of a different direction for Kirby's series of games, which I honestly don't mind that game, on the Wii version that is. Oh goodness, that was close. And yeah, basically in order to able to win Gourmet Race is that you have to get collect a certain amount of food, and then you have to reach the goal before King Dedede does. So, yeah, it's self-explanatory, and there's not much right to home about, assuming if you're able to actually notice that you have to run fast as well. So that way you can able to actually just to speed things up a little bit. So, yeah, not much else to say, apart from the fact that I've already discussed upon, you know, the first thoughts about the forms of Kirby Superstar Ultra. In fact, I was really excited able to actually going back into the Kirby series of Let's Plays ever since, let's just say, Return to Dreamland on the Nintendo Wii. And if you guys are probably wondering that, aren't you gonna do Triple Deluxe as well as Planet Robobot? Well, I will do those exponentially for this year, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there until whenever I organize myself with certain things first. Now, once we're done with those, then we can probably dive right into the latest Kirby game at this point, until God knows if Nintendo were able to make the 3D Kirby game of all things, according to some rumors out there, but we don't know exactly when. And basically I might as well do Kirby Star Allies, the most recent Kirby game in the series by that point. I know technically there are some spin-offs of all things, mainly with, well, you know, Super Kirby Clash or Kirby Fighters 2, which you still need to recommend Kirby Fighters 2, by the way, because that game is like super fun. Even especially noticeable how the fact that you can now able to play on the go, which, you know, just like the forms of the 3DS version of Kirby Fighters, where in this case Kirby Fighters Deluxe, which is basically, it's more likely the expansion version of the actual sub-games you get from the likes of Kirby Triple Deluxe. And, yeah, that's all usually comes all together. And as you can see, we did manage to able to win 3 victories in terms of, well, the Gourmet Race. And once you're done with all 3 courses, it tells you the results, and if you somehow win any courses for that part, you get yourselves 30 extra points. So, yeah, I just want to classify that for that specific details, all things considered. And somehow we have won the Gourmet Race. So, in this case, we got to leave here. And I think, fundamentally speaking, is the fact that, oh yeah, by the way, the Gourmet Race was actually a 2-star difficulty, so I just want to let you guys know that. So, yeah, join me next time on Let's Play Kirby Superstar Ultra. It's the fact that we are going to be moving on to the next game in terms of this compilation, which is Blade. And this one actually has 3-star difficulty. So I'll see you guys until on Monday. Later, fellas.